how did you get into optometry?
I went to Auckland University, did the first year biomed, tried to get to medicine. I think there is a bit of nepotism when it comes to jobs in New Zealand. Like people just hire who they know. So like these jobs, because they're in demand, if you have a degree, then there's no like bias towards getting hired.
I'm sure there's some students out there who wants to know about the salary and how much you earn per hour. And
so this is 2016. I was working for a corporate, and I started off with. But a lot of people I know, it's a pretty stable career. Like number one thing is stable. It's low stress, and it does earn pretty well. So it's good. That's kind of like the trifecta.
Welcome back to Endoscope, the brand new podcast where we look into the guts of educational topics and explore things that matter to those interested in education, healthcare, and business. My name is Harry, and I'm a fifth-year medical student. Joining me today is a New Zealand-based optometrist who graduated from the University of Auckland almost a decade ago. And something interesting about him is that he's not actually practicing clinically as an optometrist anymore. So in today's episode, in the first section, we're going to be talking a bit about the optometry degree, the career as an optometrist, and some details around that. And then in the second section, we're going a bit more into career development and why he left the field of optometry. So let's just get started by, if you could just give us a quick 10-second introduction of yourself. What's your name, what you do, and where you're from?
Cool. Thanks, Harry. That's actually a really cool introduction that you have. Once again, just thanks for having me on board. I'm really excited to talk about the topics about optometry as well as career development. It's something I'm really passionate about. So a bit about me in 10 seconds. So like you said, I was an optometrist, you could say. Now working as a web developer in a company that helps optometrists fit hard contact lenses. We can dive into that a bit more later on, but that's sort of me in a nutshell. I'm New Zealand based. I live in Palmerston North. I used to live in the South Island, Christchurch, and I studied in Auckland. So that's me.
Cool. Awesome. Wow, that's a bit more than 10 seconds, but very, very well-rounded introduction. So how did you get into optometry? Because, it would have been, 10, 15 years ago since you've graduated high school and, just flashing your mind back to 2010, 2011. Yeah. Yeah,
it's funny when you said it's been almost 10 years since I graduated. Like time does fly, and it's kind of like a good indicator of age too. So how I got into optometry is it's a pretty common story. Something I'm a bit ashamed of. So I basically, when I was in high school, we can all start from high school. I basically had a science kind of background, and actually really was getting into medicine. So I did all the sciences, like what do they call it, the Asian 5, to the sciences plus English. So the stats, calculus, and all the sciences. I did that in Palmerston North. So I'm from Palmerston North. I'm a Palmerston North local. I went to Auckland University, did the first year biomed, tried to get to medicine. So I applied for 3 things at the end of the year. And I did okay academically, but for me, university was more... So I was really quite sheltered in high school and very academic focused. University was obviously getting away from home, my parents, and just changing the settings. So for me, it was more me shifting. So I did okay academically. I applied for 3 things. I applied for medicine, which is what I was going for. That was a primary goal, medicine, optometry, and pharmacy. So I got an interview for medicine. I got into optometry, and I got an interview for pharmacy. And I didn't make the cut for medicine. So I got the interview, but didn't make it through to medicine. I got an offer for pharmacy and an offer for optometry. And I thought, I really like physics and maths, so I'll do optometry. And that's how I got into the optometry program. So that's sort of the question, right? How I got into optometry. It was basically by default. At the time, I'd never seen an optometrist before. So I was 19 at the time, picking a career. So I didn't really know what careers were out there. You got your basic law, engineering, a doctor. Those are the 3 careers that I thought you could only do. So
of course,
that's how I got into optometry.
It's like the typical when you've got an Eastern sort of Asian upbringing. It's there's only a handful of careers that you can be deemed successful. Otherwise, you're just a failure, right? That's how
exactly,
that's how kind of my family thinks anyway.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that sort of immigrant mentality, right? Your parents.
It's,
I don't know if they forced me to do go into that kind of mindset to get those careers, but they really wanted security. It's kind of like that emphasis on security, right? And they're considered to be very secure jobs. We always need doctors, we always need lawyers, we always need engineers. So going to those careers is kind of what you naturally want to do outside when you leave university, as well as the fact that it's like there's no like bias, or I think there's a bit of nepotism when it comes to jobs in New Zealand. Like people just hire who they know. So like these jobs, because they're in demand, if you have a degree, then there's no like bias towards getting hired. So that's kind of like the mentality my parents had. Plus that lack of exposure, know what jobs are out there. Like we didn't know what the live job landscape is compared to like what I know now. So yeah.
So it seems like optometry is just like you've got a handful of careers that you chose to go for, and that's just the one that happens to be, accepted you, and you just went into it.
That's right. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Which is why I'm ashamed, because some people do the profession because they really, really want to, and I didn't really have that drive.
Yeah. So let's talk a bit about, I mean, again, it's 12 years ago, maybe for you, about the optometry degree then. I think it's 4 or 5 years. If you could go into a little bit about that, just because and it might have changed a bit, but I know that there's not many resources online about the optometry degree. Most of it's medicine, so we can have a bit of insight from you that will be quite good.
Yeah, like you're right, Harry. Things could have changed because it's been so long. Things might have changed, but you're definitely right. There's a lot of resources towards medicine. Like a lot of people want to get into medicine, so optometry gets sort of kind of looked over. That being said, there are people in my class who do want to do optometry, but you're right. It's a 5-year degree. Generally, to get in, there's 2 pathways to get into optometry. One involves undergrad, just like I guess for medicine, you do your 1 year biomedical science. You can do a 1 year of another degree. I'm just not sure. So I knew someone did food tech first year, and if your grades are good enough, you get in. Now I believe there's like a MNI interview, which is what all healthcare practitioners have to do. That's like the interviews to get in. Plus, there's also a graduate pathway too, so you can do a degree from any university. And I guess if there's any overlap, that's how you get in. So when you get into optometry, you're right, it's a 5-year degree. So the first few years, usually so obviously you do your 1 year biomedical year, then it's 4 years after that, so 5 years in total, depending on if you did a degree beforehand. But so we'll talk about the 4 years of optometry, because the first year is sort of an intermediate year. So you're looking at your first and second year, like that's part 2, part 3, so second, third year. Early in the degree, you're doing more like basically theory-based lectures, like you're learning about how lenses work, anatomy, physiology of the eye. Third year, fourth year, you're kind of looking more at optometry, lecture-based things, more optometry sort of settings, like how particular drugs work in the eye, pathologies of the eye. The fifth year, you're looking at working in clinic, and basically fourth year, fifth year, lots of clinical work, how to use the optometry like tools, you could say, like a retinoscope. You're probably familiar with retinoscope, ophthalmoscope, slit lamp, those sorts of tools. And at fifth year, you're basically exclusively in clinic. You might have a few lectures, but mainly clinic, and then basically exams at the end of the year. So 5-year degree. Now, I believe things had changed since I've graduated. So I think they do more clinical a bit earlier, but that's how I did it when I was in school. And it's pretty much going to be the same.
Yeah, and sounds about right according to what some of my friends who's in 5th year right now, and I've been seeing them for the past 3 years, and sounds about right of quite similar to, I mean, if they are to change anything, it won't be I reckon the basic structure of it won't have changed too much. Like it will still be the same progression. Yeah. So like, I suppose the main thing that people are wondering would be, what's the difference between optometrists and eye doctors or ophthalmologists?
Ophthalmologist, yeah, good question. So obviously optometrists study just a Bachelor of Optometry, so it's the 5-year degree. An ophthalmologist does, so they're a specialist. They would have done medical training, and then on top of medical training, they would have done their house officer, a registrar under an ophthalmology clinic, and then fellowship, and then becoming a consultant, and then subspecializing in a particular area of the eye. So they could be the cornea, which is the front of the eye, retina, back of the eye, glaucoma, which is a particular eye disease. So they kind of do that. So an eye doctor can perform surgery. I guess they're more specialized in a particular area of the eye. You could say optometrists are more. So you got primary eye care. So they're kind of more of the primary eye care. So they'll do prescriptions like for glasses, contact lenses. They can manage some eye diseases, but if it becomes too out of hand, that's what we refer to an ophthalmologist. So that kind of hopefully describes the differences in optometrists and ophthalmologists.
Sure. Would you say that an ophthalmologist knows everything the optometrists do, or not really, or are they just more specialized?
It depends. So I guess there's overlap in the fields. I'd say maybe an ophthalmologist probably knows more about the diagnosis and management of particular eye diseases. That being said, like there might be some eye diseases that an ophthalmologist may have to refer to other subspecialties. So they're just more specialized in a particular area of the eye, because the eye is pretty, as you know, it's pretty complex. There's lots of things that can go wrong. An optometrist is more broad and general, and they deal with things like contact lenses, for example, or hard contact lenses, which is most ophthalmologists wouldn't do in New Zealand anyway. Like it could be different in different countries, but there's definitely overlap in the careers, but they kind of do two different things. Ophthalmologists are more like the tertiary care, very end, and where optometrists do kind of general, do the first line.
So it's kind of like the GP, the family doctors, in terms of like medicine, and
Exactly.
in terms of the eye, kind of.
Yeah.
Sure. All right,
That's a good analogy,
that's a good analogy to put it. So throwing back to a few years ago when you're still working as clinically as an optometrist, what's a day in a life look like? Sort of what time do you start? Just go from when you leave home.
Okay, leave home. All right, so leave home, obviously drive to work, and then a good optometrist will turn up, maybe 5-10 minutes early, and they'll go through their diary, see what they have booked today. Sometimes it depends where you worked. So I'd work at places where I couldn't really predict who I'd see, like what's known as a rolling clinic, where you just have an entire book and then you have multiple optometrists working and they just pick whatever patient is available. But essentially, you turn up to work, have a look through your diary, and then you just see patients back to back. Like kind of back to, depends who you work for. Generally, you have a time limit for your appointment slot, right? So, for example, and depending on what you see, but generally, I've looked at places where an eye exam will be 25 minutes. You see a person, do an entire eye test in 25 minutes, and then you see the next person back to back to back until you have lunch, and then in the afternoon, patients back to back to back have they go home. There's some other appointments, like I worked at places where the eye test was an hour long or 45 minutes. You just change what you do during the eye test, and there's certain things that are done for you before the eye test, and there's certain things you got to do in the different places that you work. That explains the difference in the appointment times. But essentially, turn up to work, see your patients, have lunch, see your patients again, and go home. You might have to see an emergency, squeeze it in, but that's not often. And you're not just doing full eye exams all the time. You might bring them back for a supplementary appointment. As you know, like you might have done a full eye exam, but you need to bring this person back for extra tests. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. It summarizes it really well. So sort of going a bit more deeper into that regarding the work hours. So sort of what time do you start and what time do you finish, and how many hours a week do you usually work?
Yeah, generally it's 40 hours a week. So sometimes I'd start, most days I'll start 8:30 and I'll finish at 5:30, have a 1 hour lunch. So it's quite rare to finish late. Because like optometry is pretty predictable, right? There's no huge changes. So that's where when you work as an optometrist, you have that kind of control and things are going to be crazy. So that's another difference you could say between ophthalmologists and optometrists. For ophthalmologists, for example, if you have a retinal detachment, they may have to see them in the evening, so that could be a late night appointment. It's not that bad compared to other medical professions, though. Like if it was sometimes surgeries could take ages, right? But generally, you finish on time, 5:30. We're looking at 40 hours a week usually. So I worked full time. I was 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, and sorry, just want to mention, like, depends who you work for. Once again, you might be working public holidays. Or weekends. Thankfully, I did that for my kind of first part of the career that I got out of it. I was just doing weekdays and then no public holidays. Just it depends.
Nice. Sounds like just a box standard 9 to 5 days a week sort of.
Yeah.
Sort of regular work.
Like a regular job. Yep.
Yeah. Nice. And the next one is I'm sure a lot of people want to know about this, just because you work. You do a job for money, right? And I'm sure there's some students out there who wants to know about the salary and sort of how much you earn per hour and that kind of thing. If you're happy to share that with us, it would be amazing.
Absolutely. So I won't share my current job salary, but back when I was working, so this is 2016. I was working for a corporate, and I started off with $75,000. So that included So the place I worked for had a sign-on bonus. So if you sign on for a particular time, you have to stay for 2 years, I think it was. So that was $75,000 was the base salary, and then it was a $10,000 signing bonus. That's taxable, by the way. And then I got, I think, a $5,000 relocation bonus. So you could say, what is it? I can't do the maths in my head. 85. So about 90 my first year, right? But 75 was the base salary. And then I moved on. So that was my first year. I can talk about my specific case. Like, I don't know what everyone else was earning at the time, but it was roughly the same, like 75 to 85. And that's New Zealand. If you live in a more rural area, you tend to get paid more compared to an urban area. So I heard, like, if you want to work in a big city, the starting salary was 65 for the same company, same sort of big company I was working at, which was a big chain. And then following that, so a year later, I got an offer for another place, and that was $10,000 more. So that was $85,000. And then I just got a salary match for the current job I was on, so it was bumped up to 85,000. Then I think 2 to 3 years later, it went up to 90,000. Then I switched to another job, still on the 100,000. So this is my second job. And went to my third job, got it bumped up to 95,000. And then my fourth job, so I was about maybe 5 years out, was $97,500. That's 40 hours pro rata. So that last job I actually worked part-time, so I wasn't earning that full amount, but that's kind of like the salaries we're looking at. Today, like, I just hearing like what people talk about. So this is not fact. This is more hearsay. You're looking at about 100 plus, maybe 110, 120. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of like what I think it is at the moment, but I'm not sure. You're gonna have to talk and negotiate. And I think salary negotiation is really key, really important. So I'd say look into that, because the people you negotiate salaries with do it every day. You do it once every blue moon, right? So just that's kind of important to look into.
Sure. And then, that answers the question really well. Thanks for sharing all that information. And
no worries.
About the career development side of things, just about being an optometrist specifically, both in terms of like, so when you're thinking about nursing or medicine, being a doctor, you can specialize into different fields and subspecialize, and also your salary also increases. What's the sort of cap, or is there much potential for growth for a career in optometry?
Yeah, Harry, that's a good question. That's a tough one to answer. And that's kind of like my issue with optometry as well at the time. So there are definitely places you can specialize in. It depends where you work and who you work with. So I think the key, and that's probably the mistake I made, was try and get a mentor early and try and into an area of specialization as well. So the place I went to was very corporate focused. My boss he was a great mentor at the time, but I was very like more corporate focused, great optometrist, but very like, I think business savvy, business focused. So a lot of people, there's kind of, you can specialize into like hard contact is a particular specialty. So fitting people who are keratocontic, or you're just a place who does hard contact lenses as opposed to soft contact lenses, which requires a bit more expertise in fitting. And your clinic has to be set up in that particular way. You need patients who want those particular options. So you have options to go and specialize in that. But a lot of people look into, it's more outside optometry, right? Like business focus, if they want to own a practice. So the place I worked with had like a program where you could study or learn how to become an owner of the business, or become a franchisee owner of the business. Other options include, you could become a locum. So and that's quite popular with most people, where you get the flexibility to work wherever you want. You work at a higher rate as well. Yep. And you can move around the country locally at particular places. So that's kind of like not really like specializing in a particular area. You can, but a lot of people do, they go into those sorts of areas. So business ownership and locally, you can look at specific areas of optometry, like for example, hard contact lenses. You could do dry eye. You could work for an ophthalmology clinic. So I know I've got a few friends who work like basically for an eye doctor, they'll do most of the preliminary checks, or they'll basically do most of the management, and the eye doctor just deals with the more harder cases.
Sure. Yeah. That's a really good summary of that as well. And I know we're coming back to the money topic again, but do you know sort of is there a cap of how much you can earn, or in terms of both as an employee of specializing in a particular sort of subspecialty in optometry, or as a business owner?
For a business owner, I'm not sure. Like that's where I don't know what the, I've heard it's quite lucrative, but I think a lot of people, what they do is they would work in a practice, and then maybe sell it off in the future. So like, it's not about the money you earn at the time, but like you build a practice up and then you're able to sell it off.
Sure.
But that's kind of like going to areas I never got into that.
Of course.
Never got down that far. So that's kind of like what you're looking at in terms of, but a lot of people I know, it's a pretty stable career. Like number one thing is stable. It's low stress and it does earn pretty well. So it's good. That's kind of like the trifecta. And anything above that is it's just clickbait, right? It's just there to,
of course. Yeah, sure. All right. And so just before we round off the first section, what students would you recommend this career to, a career in optometry?
Yeah. So maybe it's personal. You definitely like seeing people. Maybe I think what I really recommend is maybe get in touch with people who are optometrists and just talk to them about the career. So definitely shadowing an optometry clinic too is really important. Like it's hard for me to say, Harry, we're all like so multi-dimensional human beings, right? Some people like certain things, some people like don't like certain things. Like for me, like, we're going to talk about this in the future, is why I left the career was, for me, like I really wanted, my job was really important to who I am. What I do is really important to me. And some people feel like their job, they don't really care that much about what they do. They just want to do something that's earning good money, it's stable, and so something they tolerate, right? And people have a life outside of their career. So it depends. It's a hard question to answer. And my recommendation for anyone is, because I do see, correct me if I'm wrong, I do see a lot in the younger generation, because there's so much information out there, there's a lot of analysis by paralysis. So my recommendation is just make a decision, do something, experience something. You can always change it in the future. Like I'm 30 now, I've just changed my career, and like you're so young. So if you graduate and you don't like it, you can always change it in the future, but it's really important to have a livelihood.
Definitely.
So yeah.
Yeah.
I hope to answer the question.
Definitely,
It's a tough one because you can't give advice to younger people. They have to live life. Yeah.
Of course. And now that, especially after 2020, there's just a range of careers out there that you could make money from. So, we're not just limited to the traditional things now.
That you didn't know about, yeah.
Of course. Yeah. All right, well, that's a good way to...
You're not stuck in one place forever as well.
Yeah. All right. That's a good place to round off the first section, and we'll take a quick break, and then we'll start the second section. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, clap.
Yeah. It's a good. Yeah, you know.
How's that?
Yeah, I'm just gonna have a drink.